إن الحمد لله وكفاه والصلاة والسلام على رسول المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فالسلام الله عليكم ورحمته وبركاته. Ahlan wa sahlan people. I'd like to today inshallah share with you an instructional video on how to perform the Salah in accordance with the school of Madina. Okay, now before we get into that, I just want to highlight why are we doing this. Quite a few people have expressed an interest in wanting to learn the Maliki Madhhab. And one of the first things that comes to their mind is, okay, so, I want to study this fiqh. How do I pray? And as they say in Arabic, وَبِالْمِثَالِ, that يَتَّضِحُ الْمَقَالِ. That rather than just speaking of it, let's exemplify. Show it by example. Before we get into the actual actions of Salah, let's just get some basic points out the way. The prayers, the 5 daily prayers, consist of raka'at. Okay, the singular raka'ah or a unit. Now, in today's instructional video, we'll only be going through the key actions just for your information, and I'm sure many of you are already aware of this. The units of prayer, the raka'at, as they consist in the salawat, in the prayers, are the subh, the morning prayer, has 2 raka'at. We generally refer to it as subh. I know many people do refer to it as fajr as well. Within the Maliki school, they call it subh, and they call the sunnah before it fajr. Dhuhr, the afternoon prayer, has 4 raka'at. These are the obligatory raka'at of each prayer. Asr, the late afternoon prayer, has 4 raka'at. Maghrib, 3. And Isha has 4. Now, having covered that, I'd like us to also understand that one of the key themes I would like you to keep in mind right throughout this video, and generally whilst you will be praying your salah, is that with the school of Madina, there is a huge emphasis on keeping a naturalness right throughout the prayer. Now, you'll see what I mean as we go through this video, but just keep that in mind, okay? A naturalness. Bismillah, folks. Right, so let's move on to the salah. In order to perform and enact for us, yep, that's not a jinn, just in case you're wondering, that's a jinn in the background, it's not. That's Shaban, who's kindly offered to perform this salah for us so we can get a clear example. Allahu Akbar. Okay, so you're ready to pray. You're going to face the Qibla. Once you're doing that, you've got an intention. Now, what does this mean? All this is having an awareness, okay? You want to know what it is that you're doing. That's what this is about. No need to verbalize anything, no need to say anything. Once you're ready, you're looking ahead, you say the takbir, which is Allahu Akbar. That is necessary to begin the salah. That's accompanied by raising the hands to the shoulders, okay? You let them drop and go back to their resting place, which is by the side according to the school of Madina. Now, no need to freak out. This is called sadl. This is, which means a hanging. This is from the sunnah, as explained by many ulama, like Ibn Abdul Bar, who said the sadl wal qabd kilahuma sunnah. This was also the position of many of the imams of this tradition, including people like Sa'id ibn Musayyib, Sa'id ibn Jubayr, Urwat ibn Zubayr, Layth ibn Sa'ad, Hassan al-Basri, Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, and others. So it is a well-known position within Ahl Sunnah and within the Maliki school. You also have the option of folding your arms, which is referred to as qabd. This is equally applied and practiced by many Malikiyah as well. Okay? So you've got that. Another question somebody may ask, okay, where should I be looking? Where should I be looking? Now, you do have generally 2 options, either to just look straight ahead, as in the Quran, where we're reminded by the verse, فَوَلُّوا وَجُوهَكُمْ شَطْرَ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ, that face the Qibla. Another option is to look at the place of sujud, if that helps with concentration. Once you've got that, what do we do? There is no dua to begin. There is no isti'adha, which means A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem. There isn't even basmala, which is Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Once again, this is from the Sunnah. This was the practice of the people of Madina that Imam Malik found himself upon, and this is what he taught. So there's no need to freak out once again. You begin immediately with the recitation, which is Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So that's how you begin. Straight after takbir, Allahu Akbar, you've gone into recitation, which is read Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa Iyyaka nasta'een, Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim, Ghayr al-maghdubi alayhim, Wala ad-dallin. Ameen. Ameen is generally said silently. Now at this stage you follow this with either a short surah of the Quran or a few verses or a few ayat can be read also. So Qul huwallahu ahad, and this is begun once again without the basmala. So you just go straight into the surah. Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Now you're ready to go into ruku'. This is done by saying Allahu Akbar and you go into ruku'. Now generally this is done without raf'ul yadayn. But that is also an option within the school of Madina, practiced by many people, to do raf'ul yadayn before going into ruku' and coming out of it. When you're in ruku', this is a place of tasbih, of glorifying Allah. So a popular tasbih, Subhana Rabbiyal Azim. This is said without any set number. You can do this, there is no limit. Once you've done that, you will rise from ruku' to qiyam. Okay. Now all these postures, by the way, you should ensure that they're done correctly and outright, whether it's ruku' or standing. Now once you stand, you will stand with the word Sami Allahu liman hamida, and follow that with Rabbana wa lakal hamd. Now you're ready to go into sujud. So what do? This is a place of dhikr, of tasbih and dua. So you're in sujud, you can recite Subhan Rabbiyal A'la once again without any set number. It's not determined. Once you're done, you can also make dua. Dua can be any dua according to the school of Medina. Anything bothering you, this is the time to reach out to Allah. The hadith says that أقرب ما يكون العبد, that the closest a person is to Allah is when he is in sujud. And in a hadith that the Prophet said, make dua when you're in sujud, فَقَامِنٌ أَن يُسْتَجَابَ لَكُمْ, that it is more deserving to be accepted. And you can do this, and this is the awesome or very interesting part. This can be done in any language according to the school of Medina. Once you've done that, you rise from sujud with takbir, Allahu Akbar, hands just resting on the thighs, and then you're ready to go back into sujud. This is just done with another takbir, Allahu Akbar, and the same thing again. It is a place of tasbih, Subhan Rabbiyal A'la, without any set number, and you can make dua. A personal dua, it can be about anything, about passing exams, about work, it can be about any problems, it can be about anything. Allah is listening, and in any language. Once you're done, you're ready to rise. You do that by saying takbir once again. As you're rising, your hands will be the last to leave the ground as you stand up. Now this will be your second rak'ah, which will be repeated in the same manner that we've done the first. Okay, so you can see that you will stand for recitation. You will go through the Fatiha, the surah. Once you've done that, you'll go into ruku'. Similarly, once again, you do your tasbih, you'll rise from ruku' with qiyam, and we've highlighted that before, and then you'll be ready to go into sujood. One thing to keep in mind as you go into sujood, ensure that the hands do precede you into sujood. That is generally as is taught and understood by the school of Madina. Now once again, 2 sujoods. Once you rise from sujood, you are now in the position of tashahhud. So what are the sitting positions? Now you're going to find more than one. Generally, you have one called tawarruk, which involves leaning in on the left hip, lowering that to the ground, and having the left foot come from beneath and under the right foot and leg, as you can see. If you find that uncomfortable or quite inconveniencing and difficult, it is valid and permissible to sit in the iftirash position, which involves resting on the left foot. Okay, so these are all transmissions which have come from different Sahaba, and the whole point of Salah is to connect you with Allah and not to kind of bring about discomfort and pain. In this position, as you are about to begin the tashahhud, the at-tahiyyat, your hands will be resting on your thighs. Your right hand will be folded with the index finger pointing out, as you can see. You'll have your thumb resting on the middle finger, as you can see, and the index finger moving sideways. Now this continues to move right throughout the tashahhud position till the end of Salah. So let's get back to the tashahhud. You will recite here, at-tahiyyatu lillah. Now there are multiple ways to read this, multiple transmissions from different Sahaba. Imam Malik chose the one by Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu an, but they are all permissible and valid, which is as follows: at-tahiyyatu lillah, az-zakiyatu lillah, at-tayyibatu as-salawatu lillah, assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi wa rahmatullah, assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi as-salihin, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Right, now this is followed by as-salatu was-salam, which is read, and once again there are varying narrations. A popular one, as-salatu al-ibrahimiyya, can be read, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallayta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka hamidun majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka hamidun majid. Now at this stage, you recite a dua. Now there is no set dua within the Maliki Madhhab. Many people popularly read du'as like the Quranic dua, رَبِّ جَعَلْنِي مُقِيمُ الصَّلَاةِ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي رَبَّنَا وَتَقَبَّلْ دُعَاء رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيَّ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَوْمَ يَقُومُ الْحِسَابِ. Or رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Now once you've done that, you're ready to finish the prayer, to conclude. And this is done with a single salam. Now that's quite popular within the school of Imam Malik, that is just one salam, although there is the option for those who want to do two, that is an option as well. And this is done simply with the words Assalamu alaikum, no more than that, and that is done by turning the head just slightly to the right as you say that Assalamu alaikum. And with that, you've concluded your prayer. Some things to just keep in mind, that during the salah, all of the postures, all of the positions ought to be done, and they really must be done with a sense of tranquility, okay, a calmness to them, in a correct manner. There's no need to rush, okay, and this is what the ulama refer to as tama'nina and i'tidal within the salah, an obligation within the salah, to perform it in a tranquil manner. One more question that a lot of people do ask is that how is this any different if I was praying behind an imam? Now it's not too different, besides things that you'd already know. One key difference is that according to the school of Madina, if the imam is reciting in an audible, in a loud prayer, you do not recite behind the imam. As the Quran states that إِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ, once the Quran is being recited, فَأَنصِتُوا لَهُ, be silent and listen to it. So that is a key difference. And once the imam is rising from ruku, he says, Sami Allahu liman hamida. There's no need for you to say that. You would rise with him, following with the words, Rabbana wa lakal hamd. These are really just some subtle key differences to keep in mind if you're praying behind the imam. Other than that, the rest is generally pretty much the same across the board. Bismillah, folks. I'd like to share something very important related to Salah, something that touches at the heart of being human, all too human, and that's forgetfulness. In Arabic, there's a saying, "Ma summiya al-insan illa bin nisyan," that we get our name insan from actually being forgetful. So, what if we forget something in Salah? That's where you have something called Sujud al-sahw, the sajda of forgetfulness, the prostration of forgetfulness. And some of you may have already come across this. You may have witnessed it in your local masjid with the imam, or you may actually be aware of these rulings. If you've seen it in a masjid, you may have seen that the imam, towards the end of his salah, when he's in tashahhud, when he's in the seated position, he's done his at-tahiyyat, he does a salam very quickly and goes into sajda. And then he sits back up and then carries on with his salah. That's what this is about, the sujood of forgetfulness. That's what we're going to take a look at. The thing to keep in mind is that in the Maliki Madhhab, there are two types of Sujud al-sahw. Okay, two different types. You've got something called as-sujud al-qabli, the sajda that is done before or without a salam. And we'll talk a bit about that shortly, you'll see that, but just keep that in mind. Sujud al-qabli, the one done without a salam or before a salam. And the sujud al-ba'di, the sajda that is done after a salam or with a salam. He goes into sujud after having done a salam, and we're going to talk a bit more about that shortly. So, what could be some of these mistakes that commonly occur within Salah? Now, we're not exhausting them, but we're going to take a look at 5 types of mistakes that could occur. The first, an addition of something verbal. So, some kind of dhikr, some kind of tasbih out of its place or extra. As an example, you sit in tashahhud, instead of reading at-tahiyyat, you end up reciting Surah Fatiha. Or you're reciting at-tahiyyat, and instead of standing up, you continue and you read Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, the salatu was salam. Or for example, you stood up and you accidentally read something else instead of Surah Fatiha. So you've read something where it doesn't belong. Well, the good news is there's nothing to do here. Okay, you just carry on, you ignore that. Any kind of additional verbal dhikr or tilawa or remembrance does not impact the salah. So that's the good news. So the first one, nothing to do. Right, now let's take a look at the second. And that is, what if you omit or forget something which is a lesser sunnah? A lesser sunnah, and these are things which you can refer back to in your courses and books as well. The lesser sunnah in salah, as an example, let's say the tasbih in ruku or in sujood, forgot to say Subhan Rabbiyal Azim, or you forgot to say Subhan Rabbiyal A'la, or one of the takbeers which is within the salah, not the takbiratul tahrim, not the one which is used to initiate salah. That's an obligation, of course, but these are the takbirat within salah. Let's say you forgot one. Good news, once again, nothing to do. Okay, you've forgotten it, it's okay, it's not an emphasized sunnah, you just carry on with your salah. Third type, you omit, you forget a major sunnah of salah. A sunnah of amongst the sunan al-mu'akkada. Okay, so what are these as an example? So things like reciting a surah. You forget to recite a surah, what would you do? Or the tashahhud, and we'll go through some of these shortly. But you omit a major sunnah in salah. What do? This is where the sujud al-sahw comes in. The first type, sujud al-qabli. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But just keep that in mind. This is where the sujud al-qabli, the one that is done without a salam, comes in. Okay, so you've forgotten or you've left out a major sunnah within salah. The fourth type, that you decide to, or you accidentally, not decide to, but you accidentally add something to your salah. So it's your fourth rak'ah, you're in the place of tashahhud, you ought to finish your salah now, but you accidentally get up to a fifth rak'ah and you add an extra rak'ah by mistake. Or instead of doing 2 sujud, you're not sure, so you end up doing 3 sujud. So what do you do in this situation? In this situation, you amend, you fix this with the sujud al-ba'di, which is done after a salam, and we're going to go into that with a bit more detail just shortly. Before we do that, I just want to include here, this includes the situation where you are in doubt. So if somebody was in doubt and they said, well, you're praying your salah and you're not sure, am I in my second rak'ah, or am I in my third, or am I in my third, or am I in my fourth? You're not sure. You always build on certainty. So if I think, am I in my third or fourth? Well, I've definitely done 3. So you build on that. And there's a possibility that you may have done something extra, an additional act, so it's part of this fourth category. It is amended with a sujud al-ba'di, and we're going to come to that shortly, just remember that. The fifth category is you forget to do an obligatory act. Now there is some good news. The school of Madina, folks, offers a solution to fix this too. Okay, and this is called ilgha, the concept of cancellation within salah, and we're going to speak about that shortly. So these 5 examples summarize common mistakes that occur to each and all of us in our daily lives. So let's just take a look now with a bit more detail at these. Right, so now we're going to take a look at some examples and go through this sujud al-sahw in terms of the sujud al-qabli and ba'di according to the school of Madina. We've got our helpful participant back there, as you can see. He's going to be demonstrating for us. So let's take a look at some of these mistakes that occur. We mentioned that if you miss a sunnah mu'akkada, an emphasized sunnah within salah. Now what do we mean by that? These include a surah, reciting a surah within salah after Surah Al-Fatiha. So if you miss that, it includes that. It includes your tashahhud, your actual at-tahiyyat, which is recited, and the sitting when you sit down and recite that. It includes saying Sami Allahu liman hamida as you rise from ruku'. It includes reciting aloud, audibly in the nighttime prayers, and silently during the daytime prayers. And it also includes omitting a couple of lesser sunnah. So if a person was to miss out, let's say, more than 2 or more takbirat, and that doesn't include takbiratul tahrim, not your opening takbir, which initiates salah, but if you missed out the others in between salah, it would take the same ruling, okay? And this is fixed by a sujud al-sahw, a sujud al-qabli, okay? So this is done before a salam. So we're going to take a look now. So let's just say somebody has, they've forgotten to recite a surah in salah. So now they're at the end of their salah. They're sitting in tashahhud. They've read their at-tahiyyat. Now before they begin their salatu was salam, so before they've begun that, without doing any salam, they're just going to go into sujood. And this is a regular sajda. So you do the normal tasbih, Subhan Rabbiyal A'la, and you perform 2 sajdas just like you would. Once you've finished that, you sit back up, you're in your tashahhud position again. You would again recite at-tashahhud at-tahiyyat, followed by as-salatu was-salam, followed by the dua, and then a salam to conclude. That's your sujood al-qabli. Right, so that's the sujood al-qabli. What about the sujood al-ba'di? Well, that was the fourth, if you remember, the fourth category of mistakes that do occur, and that is an addition within salah. And this can be doing something, as I mentioned earlier, like adding an extra rak'ah to salah, adding an extra sajda, adding an extra ruku. It could be adding something extra, but an action. We are not restricting, we are not speaking of a recitation or anything verbal that is a dhikr. That we mentioned is negligible, does not impact the salah. Okay, and when we say adding something, just to keep in mind, what we don't mean is to add something which almost outweighs the entire salah. Okay, so it must be something still small compared to the entire salah. So let's say you're praying 4 rak'at and you added 1 or even 2, I suppose, by mistake, but you couldn't add an entire 4 rak'ah extra. That would be just too much, and you'd have to stop that salah and start again. But that seldom happens ever. I don't think it would ever happen. But so coming to this point, right? So you've added something extra. So let's, as you can see with our helpful participant, that let's say he prayed 3 sajdas by accident. And this does include, as I mentioned before, where a person is in doubt regarding his salah or her salah. So if they thought, have I prayed 3 or 4 rak'at? So they build on the least number, and because there was a chance that they may have added something to the salah, they would do a sujood al-ba'di. And what is that? Let's take a look. So that is, you've reached the end of your salah now, you're in tashahhud, you've read your at-tahiyyat. Before you begin as-salatu was-salam, you will make a salam to the right, as you can see. Following that, you will go into sujood. You will do 2 sajdas, just like any other sujood. Once again, with regular tasbih, Subhan Rabbiyal A'la, etc. Once you've finished and risen from that, you'll be back in the tashahhud position. You will recite your at-tahiyyat, followed by as-salatu was-salam, followed by your dua, and you'll conclude your prayer with salam. That was a sujood al-ba'di. So you've got a sujood al-qabli for leaving out a sunnah, and you've got sujood al-ba'di for adding something to the salah. Now somebody may be thinking, okay, being preoccupied like we are, what if I mistakenly did both? Like I added something and forgot something. So let's say you forgot to recite a surah after Fatiha, but you also added by mistake an extra rak'ah. You stood up for a 5th rak'ah. So you've got a minus and a plus. What's the mathematical formula? When you multiply a minus with a plus, it's always a minus. It's always a minus. Look at that. So that's exactly what you do. It's always a sujood al-qabli. The one without the salam, if you've forgotten. So if you've forgotten something and you've added something, you always do the sajda, sujud al-sahw, which is without a salam, sujud al-qabli. Okay? One of the most intriguing aspects that I want to share with you, and that comes back to our 5th type of mistake that could be made in salah. And this is forgetting or omitting, leaving out an obligatory action within salah. You heard me, an obligatory action. Now, although many people in this situation don't provide a solution, they say, well, you can just break your salah and start again. However, the school of Madina provides a solution. Allahu Akbar. why break something when you can repair it? Imam Malik actually speaks about this in the Mudawwana, and he addresses it, and it's called ilgha, the concept of cancellation. So let's take a look at this. So we have our helpful participant right here. He's had a busy day, he's praying, and he forgets to do ruku'. He's so overwhelmed with his thoughts, he goes straight into sujood. He's doing sajda, he's had a busy day, he's not even thinking. He rises up from sujood into his second rak'ah. At this point, it occurs to him that subhanallah, I actually forgot to do ruku' in my first rak'ah. Now at this stage, instead of saying, okay, let me break the salah and start again, the school of Madina teaches that what he would do is cancel, you heard me, cancel out that first rak'ah at a mental level. Cancel it out. So although he is in his second rak'ah, but as far as he is concerned, this is now his first. So the one he's actually read without the ruku', cancel that out mentally. Treat this like your first rak'ah. He will now, imagine he was praying 4 rak'at, or 2, or 3, whatever he was praying, he will continue his salah normally, as though this was, in this example, his first rak'ah. He'll carry on, complete that salah. He'll go through the normal actions, nothing different. The ruku', the qiyam, the sujud, the tashahhud. He'll do everything, complete all the necessary rak'at. Eventually reaching tashahhud. Now at this stage, let's say that occurred to him in dhuhr, which was a 4 rak'ah. Now, and he'd cancelled out the first one and started it again from his second and read 4. Now technically, what has he done? He's added something extra to his salah. So when you add something extra in salah, how do you make up for that? You got it. Sujud al-ba'di. So he's going to read his at-tahiyyat in tashahhud. Before he gets onto as-salatu was-salam, before he gets onto that, he's going to do a salam and then go into sujud. This is his sujud al-ba'di. He'll do 2 regular sajdas with tasbih. Once he's finished that, he'll continue to recite once again his tashahhud, his at-tahiyyat, as-salatu was-salam, followed with a dua, and then conclude with a salam. Allahu Akbar. And that is how you repair a salah from many of the common mistakes or areas of forgetfulness that we find ourselves in. It is important to highlight here though, that if you are praying behind an imam and the imam is doing sujud al-sahw or he has forgotten something, then just follow the imam. As the hadith states, إِنَّمَا جُعِلَ الْإِمَامِ لِيُؤْتَمَّ بِهِ. The imam has been placed that you may follow him. So if the imam is somebody who only does the sujud al-ba'di one with a salam, so after the salam, just follow him. Okay, do not try to do something different. That's important to know. What's also worthy of consideration is that minor physical actions within the salah do not require a sujud al-sahw and they do not invalidate the salah. So if you are praying in jama'ah or on your own and you moved slightly, like let's say you moved forward a row or you moved to the side slightly or you did something like this or you made hand gestures, that does not break your salah, neither does it require a sujud al-sahw. Okay, so these were some helpful notes and points on tackling this situation of sujud al-sahw, what it means and how it is performed, both the qabli and the ba'di within the school of Madina. I hope that's been of some help. Remember us in your du'as. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala. Let's take a look at a few questions as follow-up questions that have been concerning some people within the Maliki Madhhab and how they should be looked at. Is there a distinction between the salah of men and women within the Maliki Madhhab? Okay, now that is a very good question, because some schools of law draw out an absolute distinction from how the woman places her hands, to how she sits, to how she does sujud, to how... So there's, in some madhabs you see that, and in some there's zero distinction. The school of Madina, the Maliki Madhhab, from a principle perspective, it does not highlight any differences between men and women in salah. It doesn't say that women should stand differently, or they should place their hands differently, or sit differently, or it does not say that. Men and women from a principle perspective are the same when it comes to salah. However, there are some advisory guidelines highlighted by many of the ulama within the madhab that say that a woman could pay attention to some aspects of modesty. And in light of that, she can maybe if a certain situation requires more modesty, she can just adapt to that. That's all. Now, they don't go into too much detail. They just say if she was doing sujud and if she was doing ruku, she could just be more mindful of that and her environment. That's all. But in essence, there is no distinction between men and women within the school of Medina. Another question: when the hadith mentions forbidden times of prayer, what does that mean? Does that mean there's certain times in which we cannot pray our salah? Absolutely not. You can pray your salah at any time. That includes sunrise, sunset. What the hadith is speaking about is nafal, voluntary prayers, not the fara'id, not the obligatory prayers. So if you decided to do some nafal, you shouldn't do that if it's actual sunrise. If sunrise is actually taking place, wait till after sunrise and then you can perform that. But not the actual subah, not the obligatory prayers. So if you've woken up late and sunrise is taking place, you can still pray. In fact, you should pray. The hadith says, let him pray once he awakens or remembers. فَلْيُصَلِّهَا حِينَ ذَكَرَهَا. Okay, so that is not a prohibition to pray any obligatory prayer. It's only referring to the nafal, the voluntary kind of prayers. This is a good question. When praying in congregation, how do we stand? Well, obviously you stand next to the person, either side, and just in a natural manner. You will stand shoulder to shoulder. You will try and keep a nice straight line, but you are not under any, in fact, you're not even advised really to join the heels or, to touch feet or things like this. That's not actually required. It's not advised within the school of Medina. You just stand naturally. Your feet, however, they would just be placed in a natural stance, as if you were just regularly standing. That's all. The main thing is you join the shoulders with the people next to you in a way that's natural. Once again, not to squeeze, not to leave gaps at the same time. Just be natural. This theme, you will find it recurring right throughout the madhab of just being natural. And the same thing occurs when you're praying at home, by the way, or if you're praying on your own. This was highlighting if you're praying next to somebody, but even on your own, how far apart should your feet be? The school of Medina does not pay any attention to these kind of things. It does not call you to pay attention to them. I know some schools of law do, but the school of Medina emphasizes that things should just be natural. Just stand. That's all you do. Do not become obsessed about these tiny kind of details which almost make the whole thing too mechanical. So the whole point is to keep a spiritual and a natural connection within salah. This is an interesting question which follows up from our Sujud al-sahw video, and that is, what if you forget to do Sujud al-sahw? So not only have you forgotten something in salah, then you've forgotten to do Sujud al-sahw. As we have highlighted in the video that there are two types of Sujud al-sahw. There's the Sujud al-qabli, the one done before or without a salam, and the Sujud al-ba'di, the one done with a salam. Okay. Now, what the what the ulama would say generally is that if you've missed these, the sujood al-qabli, that you should do it if you remember it more or less, or the ba'di straight after. So straight after, once you've, let's say a person's finished his prayer and he's about to get up and then he realizes, oh my God, I forgot to do sujood al-sahw, just do it there and then, followed by a salam. Even if a certain amount of time has lapsed, but not an immense amount of time. We're not talking like days or things like this. So if you're still in the masjid, let's say you'd been here for, I don't know, half an hour or something, and you're about to, and you realize, oh, I hadn't done sujood al-sahw, you can do that. Okay. Obviously, if a considerable amount of time has lapsed, then you would just let that be. Okay, and that's fine. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafur Rahim. It's not actually an issue. Some ulama do speak about, well, sujood al-ba'di, the one done after, could be made up for even if it's after an excessive amount of time, because technically it was after the salam anyway. And that's also something that that can be done, and you can look into that. You can research these issues further as well by resorting to either your local imams or just studying, inshallah, further on courses as well. Do not restrict your learning just to things like this, but this is just to give you some insight. This is an interesting question. What do I wear for Salah? Well, you don't have to actually dress up, so to speak, for Salah in a particular uniform or anything like that. You would just be, for men and women, as long as your awrah is covered. Okay, that is the requirement. Now, the awrah for men is different, as you're all aware. For men, generally, it's just between the navel and knee at most, really. And for women, everything with the exception of the hands, the face, and with some disagreement, the feet as well. So now, that is generally the awrah that has to be covered. As long as that is covered, you would pray your salah. Some people ask questions like, what if I've got a picture? Like, what if I'm wearing a t-shirt and it's got a picture on it of something? Does that violate my salah? No, it does not. The salah is intact. It is not violated in any way. You can perform your salah like that, okay? Some people have asked, what if I've got a t-shirt on and short sleeves, do I need to wear? This is for, let's say, men. I've got a t-shirt or a vest. Do I need to wear a shirt? Do I need to wear a jumper or a jacket? No, you do not. You can perform your salah in that. As long as that's how you generally wear. What the ulama tend to say is, don't kind of dress down for salah. Like if I was sitting here with a shirt and I think, well, I know it's salah time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my shirt off and then pray. No, you shouldn't do that. But if you were already in a t-shirt, or you happen to be in a vest as it was, and you are now praying, that is fine. The salah is accepted. Inshallah, it's not violated in any way. Okay. So these are another question people ask, which is, I suppose, not directly linked to the clothes, but it ties in with the question on pictures on the clothes. What if there's pictures in the room that you're praying? Once again, this does not impact your salah. Okay, this does not violate your salah in any way, but and people will have, and I've answered the question on whether pictures are allowed or not in other questions, and you can refer to that there. Something also worthy to be considered at this stage is, what if your trousers for men are below your ankles? Does that impact your salah? It does not at all. And I do not believe that to be forbidden, as I've highlighted previously, and neither do many of the ulama within the school of Madina. Ibn Abdul Barr and many have said that that was a custom of the past that involved a sense of arrogance, which if it has not persisted, then the ruling does not continue either. And I don't know really that in essence there is no distinction for that ruling in or outside of salah, but people tend to make an issue out of it before they're getting into salah, and they seem to think, well, I should do this for salah, but you don't actually need to do that for salah specifically. So that's covered a lot of these. One more question that comes to mind. First of all, since we're speaking of trousers, what if sometimes you get some men, and they, some guys will wear tight jeans sometimes, and this has been raised as an issue. I've seen this being asked, does that impact the salah in any way? With men, it does not impact the salah, although they can be mindful to dress perhaps more appropriately, but that does not impact the salah in any way. The hadith that you find, the Sahih hadith, in which the Prophet ﷺ advises the women to delay in their sujood before they rise, it explains that the men, that they would, the izars, the kind of sarongs that they would wear, they would be wrapped so tight. It says, لِشِدَّةِ ضِيقِ أُزْرِهِمْ, that because they were so tightly wrapped that it would define everything clearly when they were in sujood, the contours and everything. And yet the Prophet did not forbid that. He did not say it violated their salah in any way. So just to keep that in mind, okay? So these are things to do with clothing within salah. Another good question that comes to mind right here, what about covering the head for men? Is this something that we ought to do? Is it discouraged if we're not doing it? The school of Madina does not recognize wearing a hat or covering your head as a sunnah within salah or a sunnah of salah. It is not virtuous per se. In fact, Imam al-Shatibi in his Muwafaqat, when speaking of this, puts it under the category of al-urf wal-'ada. This is to do with custom and convention, and he says that we see that certain people in the East tend to cover their heads, men, and that is seen as noble amongst them. He said, and in the West, and he was from Muslim Spain, Granada, 700 years ago, and he says in the West there is a tradition that the Muslim men generally do not cover their heads. So this is seen as really, in essence, especially within the school of Medina, as part of convention and custom. It is not seen as a sunnah which people have to be doing. So your salah is absolutely fine. It's not makruh. It's not, you haven't violated anything, and it is correct, inshallah. Okay, something to just quickly add here, by the way. One is, what if I mentioned just briefly about the awrah before for men between the navel and knee. So what if somebody was playing sports and they had these kind of long shorts on? Can they just come in and pray like that? Well, if you're covering that awrah, of course you can. Okay, just to clarify, as I mentioned before, the main thing is covering the awrah. If it's covered, there isn't a problem. Another thing I'd like to highlight is, and it's, I suppose, perhaps more so linked to the fashion of the age. Sometimes people wear certain types of jeans or trousers, men especially, that kind of hang loose or drop slightly from the hip. And especially, and even if they're not, sometimes you find people when they're going into sujood, they may have regular trousers, regular jeans on, but when they're going into sujood, it kind of lowers itself, revealing a bit of themselves whilst they're in sajda, you could see. So only for maybe a few seconds, so people go into sajda, and some people are struggling with a t-shirt or a shirt, and we've all probably seen this phenomenon. What is the ruling of this? Well, needless to say that they should really take heed in dressing a bit more appropriately. That goes without say. Like maybe a jacket, or I don't know, or wear a type of shirt or something that's more appropriate and modest, rather than kind of exposing part of your backside, so to speak, when you're in sujood for other people in a masjid. This doesn't befit the environment of a masjid. But that said, does that violate the actual salah? That kind of partial revealing, for that short duration within salah, within sujood, let's say, because mostly it would occur in sujood, does not violate the salah. So one thing to keep in mind is that the school of Medina, when it comes to the awrah, it divides them in two. You have the awratul mughallada and the mukhaffafa. Now, although the entire awrah must be covered, but the mughallada is the core part of the awrah, and the mukhaffafa is the extended part. So the mughallada, for men being the actual genitals and the rectum, this must be covered. The whole thing must be covered, but this cannot under any circumstances be exposed. If the extended aura, like the thigh or the upper part of the buttocks or things like this, were momentarily exposed for a short span of time within the salah, for let's just say during a movement like this or in sujud, that does not compromise the entire salah. Okay, so that's something definitely worth remembering and understanding, that there is a distinction in the aura within the school of Madina.